Living in Service with Stefan Ozic.
We're away. Cool. Wow, Sam Harvey, thank you for being here, man.
Sure, brother.
Appreciating you for taking the time. And I can't kind of shoo from the fact that we're having it videoed. So welcome to the first ever video episode of Living in Service. Thanks to Benji at Poynton Studios. But I felt I couldn't really not mention that because you're probably going to be viewing this visually, and to those listening, just know that there's going to be a visual component now moving forward. So just to start that off, it's pretty damn exciting. But to you, Sam, I firstly just want to say congratulations on what you achieved 2 times over. One being basically beating a world record, along with assisting Phil Gore on his world record, and less than 10 days later, winning a backyard ultra, coming first. For those that don't know what I'm referring to, if you could just break down what it is, firstly, in that Australia backyard, firstly, what a backyard ultra is and what you achieved.
Yeah, for sure, man. So a backyard ultra is essentially an ultra marathon in a last man standing format. So you have a 6.7 kilometer loop. Everybody starts that loop and has 1 hour to complete that loop. And if you finish fast, then you get a bit of a rest. And if you don't, then you go straight back out. But basically, the way it stands is 6.7 kilometre loop. Everyone starts on the hour every hour. You must finish within the hour, and then you must start on the next hour. If you don't complete the loop within 60 minutes, then you get kicked out. If you can't start the next loop, then you're out, and you basically continue like that until there is only one person left. So the race continues, provided there are at least 2 people left in the race, and you just continue looping lap after lap. And yeah, once you are left with only one person, then that person is termed as the winner, or also the only finisher, and every other racer gets a did not finish next to their name. And
it's a harsh, funny reality. If you definitely you want to have a good win ratio in your kind of race resume, you probably want to stay far away from backyards, because even if you crest 200 Ks and then, as you say, you get 207, you DNF.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of runners, especially like very achieved ones, where this is the only time in their racing career, or it'll be the first time within their racing career that they don't finish or don't technically finish a race, which is, I guess, if you're an athlete that plays with your ego a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, I could imagine it would. It could be demoralizing, but I imagine for the athlete that is wanting to progress, that it's just like, okay, well, it's just all part of that bricklaying process.
Yeah, well, I mean, the beauty of the backyard is that it allows athletes to kind of challenge their absolute limit, whether it's their physical limit or their mental limit, whichever one comes first. You're either going to win it, or you're going to hit some kind of wall that prevents you from carrying on. And generally, regardless of how good the athlete is, whether they're a novice or if they're a world class, generally speaking, that person gives up because they just have a moment of softness and a lack of willpower, and they give up because, yeah, it's very seldom that I've seen within the sport that someone can't carry on literally because their body gives up. Like, people's minds give up well before they reach that mark.
Yeah, and that's a harsh truth of it. But as you say, it exposes you to that, and it forces you to come to that point where you are pushing your limit. And in your case, that's exactly what you did. You basically did something that literally you and 3 other people have achieved in the world. You crested over 101. Well, in your case, 101 in the Belgian that reached that 101, but then in Phil's case, he did an extra loop. But what you two did in particular on that day, if you could break that down.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
that world record, because one thing, just to kind of preface, is that you went into it with, I listened to this previous podcast, I can't remember an interview, and you mentioned that you were going to do the world record, so you went in with that as your intention.
Yeah, totally. So I went into that race, was June 2023, over in Australia. I went into that with my previous personal best only 46 hours, which was 308 kilometres, and went into Australia with the intention of breaking the world record of 101 hours, which would be more than double my previous personal best, but I was pretty damn confident I could do it. And yeah, I guess over the course of 4 days, I think it was 100 odd other competitors pulled out or bit the dust. And yeah, after 90 hours, it was just me and the Australian champion Phil Gore left in the race. And yeah, we carried on, just the two of us, for those last 11 or 12 or whatever it was hours. And yeah, so I matched the world record of 101 hours, and before being medically removed from the race. And then that allowed Phil to do one more lap, and hence breaking the world record by going from 101 up to 102 hours. And then that technically makes me the assist to the current world record, because in the Backyard Ultra you can only go as far as there are two people in the race, and you can only go as far as the person who's termed as the assist is willing to carry the person who ends up eventually winning.
Yeah, it's because as I was watching, I was following it on, what is it, Dead Gully. Is it Dead Gully, is that correct?
Dead Cow Gully.
Dead Cow Gully, yeah, he was the guy posting the updates, and it was literally like following like a reality TV show where you're behind seeing these people going through this emotional turmoils that you can't even imagine physically, and you kind of get invested in that, and seeing that you and Phil with I was just like, honestly, on my way to work, like, yes, boy, like, come on, mate, like, because I knew you wanted to get it, so seeing you each lap just cresting, and there was periods where it was about a couple laps, so 2 hours, 3 hours, where nothing would be updated. And I'm like, yo, what's happening? Are we still going? And then I saw you in those, I think it would have been around 90-something, mid-90s, and I think something was mentioned about you being, like, under the weather, so to say. And so, like, how much did that play in, obviously, to that goal? Because I imagine already mentally you're going through that process of having to, like, negotiate.
Yeah, for sure.
What
I mean,
was that like?
Yeah, so what ended up happening was I went into the race with a bit of a cold. So yeah, like the Thursday, Friday prior to the race, had a bit of a cold. Racing on the Saturday, that progressed into, I guess, a bit of a chest infection. So I was coughing and sneezing up big chunks of green the size of your thumb, and yeah, did that for basically all of the Saturday night, and thought I was clear of that come Sunday, but yeah, I guess that eventually progressed into pneumonia, which is what the doctor, he threw a stethoscope on my chest on the fourth or the fifth day of racing, and yeah, he said he could hear right side pneumonia or something. And yeah, they basically said they wanted to pull me from the race because of that. And that was at like hour 95 or 96. And I basically said, like, you're not pulling me from the race. Like, I'm this close to breaking the world record. Like, let me stay here. So after a lot of negotiating that went on in the background, they let me stay, but basically on the premise that I would help to break the world record, and then I would retire from the race.
Whoa. So you're at the mercy of that,
essentially. Yeah. So trudged on, the 95th hour through to loop 101, ran that 101st loop, and yeah, basically there was a lot of chat in the background basically saying, like, you're done, you're crook, like, chill out, and save it for the World Championship in October, which is pretty much what I did. And I guess I've had a little over a month to kind of dwell on that now, and in all honesty, like I regret what went down. Like, I could have gone a lot longer.
Yeah.
But
I regret what went down. Do you mean in the respect of like fully listening to them as opposed to being like, you know what, fuck yeah, I'm gonna like.
Well, yeah, listening to them, but I take ownership over it because essentially I was the one who presented himself in a manner that was suggesting that I should be pulled from the race. If I had have just kind of manned up and kind of put on a brave face and not kind of shown weakness, then there's no reason that anyone would have wanted to pull me from the race. So yeah, that's on me. But yeah,
retrospect,
I can't take away from it. Like there was a hell of a lot of victories, and
well, you broke the world record, man. You know,
exactly. I didn't come out on top, but the way I see it, like, I'm actually number one in the world at the sport. Like, I made a couple of little mistakes, but I'm not going to make those mistakes again.
Yeah.
And I went from a 46-hour or a 308-kilometre PB to a 101-hour, 677-kilometre PB. And now I've had a chance to kind of swim in the deep end of the pool. Like, I've had my practice, and it's like, cool, ramp that up and repeat. So yeah,
I think people need to really ruminate on that fact that this man here ran 677 kilometers. Like, think about that. It's physiologically, it's you could argue that there's the type of person that say, nah, it's not possible, and yet you've done this thing. And then Phil Gore having done an extra 6.7 on top of that, so you two are literally, well, I guess the other two Belgians, but you four men are in the group of something that literally only, I don't think anyone's ran that distance before in one, because you could say it's in one go, because ultras are ran in the sense where you stop and have a meal, and they could take longer than the periods you have in the loop.
Yeah, no, totally.
Intermission.
I mean, yeah, there are only 4 of us in the world that have done that. Like, have people run further? Yes. But people that are running 1,000 kilometers or 2,000 kilometers, they're having actual breaks.
Yeah.
They're getting to sleep for
Hours.
2, 3, 4 hours in a session where, like, we have about 10 minutes at the end of each hour. That's pretty much enough to eat and drink and maybe do a clothes change if you've got the time to do that. But yeah, like, basically how a lot of people identify backyard ultra is essentially non-stop running, because you're not getting to stop for that long, and then you've got to be straight back up and out there and do it all over again every hour.
I'm so curious. I kind of only wanted a glance on this to start, but I want to get into it more depth. Like, as you started to encounter the mental chatter, like, you said this real interesting thing when we caught up a couple of weeks ago, is that the first 24 hours, or I think you might have even said the 40 hours, is kind of like a warm up in the way. It's kind of a patient game, because in your mind, it's like 24 hours, this is the warm up. You know you're going to get through it. It's not a fact that it's kind of building you up. So it's literally just a patience game. How you sort of had to break that down, or if you did break that down, the time scale, the extent of the time on your feet that was ahead of you. How did you chunk away at that? Because I imagine looking ahead would have killed you mentally. So how did you sort of approach that?
Yeah, for sure. So with these races, especially all the ones that I've run in New Zealand, they usually finish somewhere within the 30 to 40 hour mark. So I basically view it as the race doesn't start until you're 24 hours deep. And usually for that first 24 hours, I'm just bored as hell, because I've done quite a few of these now. So it's kind of like just another day at the office, except a long one. 24 hours is usually just boring, and it's I don't know, maybe having chats with people or listening to podcasts or I don't know, just trying to enjoy it. But yeah, generally for the first 24 hours of one of these races, I'm bored. For the world record, it was actually for the first 48 hours, I was bored as hell. And like, I was finding myself like trying to find little get out of jail cards. Like, I don't want to be here. This is boring. The bulk of the work is still ahead of me. Why don't we go to the beach? If I pull out now, I could go to the beach. There's a nice beach in Noosa, like 2 hours away. We could do that. And yeah, I found myself with these little, just tiny little voices, and you just try and block them out for a bit. When you're that early in the race, like the first day or two, it's just a matter of kind of breaking it down and just attacking what's in front of you in the absolute moment it's in front of you. So not letting the bigger picture kind of, overwhelm you. It's doing the task that's at hand. And the task that is at hand is running the loop that you're in or running the mile that you're in. It's like, I have one job and it is to finish this loop. And then when I get into race base, I have one job. It is to feed myself, rehydrate myself, change clothes. Cool, that's done. Right, my job is to get out there on this next loop. And you just continue to do the job that's at hand and do it as perfectly as you can, and then you just repeat.
Patience.
Yeah, and then it all adds up into this mammoth thing that you look at in retrospect rather than at the time that you're doing it.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. It's so when it comes to the nutrition component, like as you say, you have to rinse, repeat, you check into your home base, you have that little intermission window. How does it work calorically? Because for those listening and watching, is that your body can only really take in about 200 to 300 calories per hour, and really, ideally, you want to be taking in like 500, 600 calories per hour, because you're always going to be in a deficit, but you can't. For sure. Like, how do you sort of combat that and approach that?
I mean, the beautiful thing is that like you are made of calories.
Yeah.
Like you're made of fat and muscle and glycogen and all these other things that your body burns as a fuel source. So essentially, like, there's no way that you're going to be able to get on board as much as you're burning. So you're just trying to top up throughout the race. And basically the way that I run it is I'm consuming roughly half a litre of fluid each hour through a soft flask.
And what form? Is that just water, electrolytes?
So generally I'm not going to drink water at all during the race unless I've like kind of fatigued my palate, like burnt my mouth to the point where I just want fresh water. Generally I'm going to be having a sports drink, which will be like Vita Sport or Pure or Morton or whatever, and at least that way I'm getting carbohydrate through my liquid, and I'm also getting salts, so I don't cramp. And so generally that's going to provide me with anywhere from like 25 to 60 calories, grams of carbohydrate per hour, and then on top of that I'm going to be eating, and that varies from bananas and fruit and watermelon to actual meals to burgers or pasta or whatever I can get down, whatever seems nice at the time, or it might even just be lollies. And that's every hour, trying not to miss any hours. And if I do miss an hour, then I don't miss the following hour.
Okay. Do you take food with you when you go out onto the run, or is it generally you eat it in the moment of your intermission?
So yeah, I have my own particular system, which seems to be different to a lot of people, is I treat the race base as a pit stop, and that's exactly what it is. I am changing out. I'm getting 500 ml of fluid on board. I'm doing all my eating. And then that way, when I'm going out on my next lap, I don't have to carry anything with me. And it means I don't have that added weight. And so that added energy expenditure from carrying things. But towards the end of the race, maybe if I just can't stomach like 500 ml of fluid along with food, along with whatever, if I can't stomach that all within the space of 10 minutes, then yeah, I will, I'll take a vest out with me, and then that way I've got my fluid easy accessible, and I've got some food that I can access during the loop.
How did you approach any gastro issues?
Yeah, so I'm normally pretty all right, but with the world record race over in Aussie, it was on the Saturday night, so the first night of the race / early Sunday morning, I started getting a bit of like gastro distress, which was, I was pretty quick onto it, and that was just, I'd had too much carbohydrate. I'd been eating like 90 plus grams of carbohydrate per hour. I'd gotten too keen. Like I was eating too much while I could eat. And essentially I don't think I was digesting it fast enough. So it was going into my lower gut, and then it was breaking down there and then just giving me gas. And then, yeah, that blew up, and I figured, okay.
Literally blew up?
Yeah. So I just reduced my carbohydrate intake and figured 3-4 hours, eventually this will pass. And yeah, that passed, and then I carried on with my race. But yeah, there were other people out there who literally that problem was the end of them.
It's a problem for a lot of, I've been following a lot of endurance athletes, from triathletes to the swimmers, and in our case, ultra running like that. It's something that it exposes you, and it breaks down a lot of people. So with like, do you, just getting into the weeds here, I just think it adds to what you've done. I want to go into the mental side, obviously, but with the physiological side, taking in the food, did you have your macros mapped out? Like, yeah, it's literally just eat food fest every time you come into base.
Like Phil, who I was racing with, he has everything mapped out. Like he has the volumes and what meal and what time and what day and what t-shirt he's wearing with what set of shorts and what he's drinking. Everything's mapped out. Me, I think my strength is probably just being a bit of a chameleon. Like I just adapt on the go throughout the race. I ride the wave. When problems present themselves to me, I figure them out in the moment, and thus, yeah, I eat what is appropriate or what feels good at the time. Sometimes you want savory, sometimes you want sweet, sometimes you don't want to drink a sugary drink, so you have water instead. And yeah, it's just a matter of kind of adjusting and balancing throughout. And I mean, at the end of the day, we kind of know how much carbohydrate or how many calories or how much salt is in whatever thing that I'm taking on board. So it's just basically taking on the appropriate amount each hour, so I'm not overloading myself or I'm not underfueling as well.
Yeah, it's fascinating. So I want to get into the point where, as you started, you said the first 48 hours, it's kind of another day in the office, as you say. So it's a patience game all throughout. When that voice became a little louder and you had to really negotiate with yourself, if ever, but I'm curious if that did and when that did happen, what's that process like? Do you have a mantra? Do you have a motto? Do you just blank it out with music? Do you listen to music? What's that sort of
Yeah,
look
for
like?
sure. Yeah, I think the first 2 days where I was bored, and yeah, I guess I was getting like little pains because like regardless of how far you run in one of those things, once you're 24 or 30 plus hours deep, like things start to hurt. Like muscles start to ache. You might get a little bit of cramping. Certain tendons flare up. Old injuries come back to haunt you. All of that. And it was during those first 2 days that, like, I don't know, occasionally something would hurt a little bit more acutely. And I'd be like, oh, shit, what's that? And you focus on that and start to ask yourself the question, like, oh, is this going to be what ends my race? And so there was a little bit of that for the first couple of days, but I just basically brought myself to the fact that it's like, you've done the training. There's not many people in the world that have done the level of training that you've done specifically for what you are doing right now. It's like your body is in like the best condition it could possibly be for this race. So the only thing that's going to let you down at this point is your mind. So don't muck it up. Like, just get the job done. Like, if you give up at this point, if you give up in the first 24 hours, or the first 48 hours, or in the last 100 hours, if I give up, then every little thing leading up to this point has been for nothing, because I've come here with the intention of breaking the world record. They've put us here on a course that's pretty damn flat, pretty runnable. They've brought a whole heap of good athletes to one spot in order to break the world record, to give a good level of competition so we can perform as high as we possibly can. Don't let your softness be the thing that betrays everything else.
Very, very matter of fact. So that's a big way you approach it. It's very matter of fact, blunt to yourself, honest. Sounds very honest.
Yeah, and I mean, sorry. Yeah. Honesty is, I guess, pretty key in being accountable in the moment.
Yeah. I think that's something that's huge. This in itself, for us to summarise, talking to someone like yourself, it is, I think that's the biggest thing that we can all take from that, is just being honest, you know, with self, with your capacity. Like, I think we're very quick to, as human beings, especially in this day and age, is to cut ourselves short. Whereas being honest demands you to be like, well, I actually probably could wake up at 5 a.m. tomorrow to get that running. I probably could go talk to my boss to ask for that pay rise. I probably could leave that job because it's bringing me misery. Oh, in order to do that, it demands me taking more responsibility, and then boom, 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 you start to open this Pandora's box of potential and capacity. And what you're saying, I feel that's just a real thing that's echoing, is that honest inventory, self-talk, and it sounds positive somewhat. What happens when it's negative? How do you approach it in the context of this race in particular?
I didn't have any negative self-talk in this race in particular. So the 101 hours was actually, I mean, whilst it was very hard, it was very much within my wheelhouse. It wasn't until I went to the race a week later in Christchurch and did the 43 hours where I won, where I experienced a lot of negative self-talk. Like that 43-hour race in a lot of ways was harder than the 101-hour race, because effectively, like, I was going into it and the wheels were already wobbling off. Like, I was going in there very much compromised, and by the second day of racing in Christchurch, I was stuffed. Like, I got a little bit too keen in the first 24 hours. I got a bit cocky. I was running too fast. And then come the 24-hour mark, I was like, oh, I'm stuffed. Like, I'm out of gas. And I thought, you silly bastard. You've gotten too keen and you've gone all out and you haven't kind of left anything in the reserves. And yeah, you've robbed yourself of probably a pretty easy victory. And I was like, shit. But I could still finish loops. I could still start loops and I could still finish loops. And I figured, you know what? You're not going to finish this race. You're not going to win this race. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep you out here and torture you all day so you learn the lesson of not getting too cocky in a race again. And so that's basically what I did for all of the second day in Christchurch. Was I just hated on myself. I just beat the shit out of myself intentionally. And then all of a sudden there was a lot of negative self-talk. It was, you cocky, arrogant bastard. You deserve to lose this race. And just, I was running/walking around the forest just screaming at myself.
Interesting. So it's like a negative self-talk that's not demanding you to be like, oh, quit, you fucking quit, but like, yo, what the word you use, you're foolish and cocky for coming into this so quick, so I'm going to give you more suffering. It's different. I would have expected that, because I think the normal person would be like, the self-talk, negative self-talk would be, oh, quit, get out of this. What are you doing here? It sounds like you were still willing and committed to go through that suffer fest, but it was like almost like an objective higher self person saying that you can still do this, but I'm going to psychologically make you suffer more by not letting you stop almost. It's interesting.
Absolutely.
That's kind of what I'm getting.
Yeah, like I was basically of the mindset of, I've stuffed this up. I'm not going to win this race, and I'm not going to do this crazy back-to-back, break the world record, and then a week later win this race, which I was like, oh, that would have been awesome. Like people would have taken notice of that, but you had to go and fuck it up because you got too keen and too cocky, and it's like, you know what? You don't deserve to have that victory, so I'm just going to punish you anyway. And that's what it was, and it was punish. Like, that Sunday sucked. It was like the most miserable running/walking I've ever done. I wasn't enjoying life, and all the negative self-talk wasn't like me trying to coax myself into winning. It was just like, you know what, you need to learn a lesson, and I'm going to make sure you learn the lesson, because I'm just going to whip you all day until eventually your body gives up and then you can't run anymore. And it was just, I guess, a byproduct of that I ended up winning that race, because by the time I'd hated on myself and made myself loop and just punished myself all day, it came into the afternoon and it was like, oh, there's only 5 of us left, and you know what, like, we're pretty close to the evening, and people don't like running through the night. People don't like running through the second night, especially after they've run through one night already. I was like, you know what, let's just win this. And so that's when my mindset changed.
It's interesting, because people would hear this and be like, why not just quit? What are you doing to us? So what is that in you? What's that in you? Because I think I kind of get it, because having done them. But I imagine people would just be saying like, well, what are you doing? You know, where does that come from? Or how do you even...
I think there's probably two sections to the answer on that. And one for me is, I believe, if you can start a loop, then you can finish a loop. And if you finish that loop, then you can start the next loop, and you basically keep going. There should be no point in time where you pull out of the race through decision alone, through your mind being too weak. Because yeah, these things are painful, they suck, but that's what ultra marathons are. They're not there to be all easy and comfortable. Like, they are there to push you to your physical and mental limits. And yeah, if you give up through decision, then yeah, that's weakness. That's yeah. I want to go until I physically cannot. Like, if my body gives up on me and I collapse out on course and I can't complete a loop, then perfect. I have pushed myself to my absolute limit, and I've achieved that wall. If you pull out of the race prior to that, then you haven't achieved that. Like, you haven't gone as far as you physically could, and that's essentially what I'm seeking. Yeah.
How did this begin? Like, was this capacity in you as a young boy? Did this come over time? Did you always have this sort of capacity? How did this begin for you?
Yeah, good question. I've actually been thinking about that quite a lot recently, and I think it comes down to, I think I have what I call the fuck you gene. It's like, I'm here to prove you wrong. I've been proving people wrong my whole life. I mean, shit, like, I shouldn't have been alive technically. Like I was like, I don't know, 10 seconds away from being stillborn. Wow. And like, from birth, I've just been giving a big middle finger to anyone who would doubt me. Like,
what happened there?
Shit doctor, too big to be pulled out. I don't know. Don't talk about it too much at home, but yeah.
Well, grateful you're here, man.
Yeah, me too. But yeah, and then like, since then, just, I don't know, bullied all through primary school, bullied all through high school, and then like, even since I've been in like the professional workplace, I've had like professional targeting, because I guess I'm a high achiever, and New Zealand has tall poppy syndrome, or tall poppy culture, and when you stick your head too high, you get your head cut off. And so yeah, all throughout my life I've had people shitting on me. And has it been a natural factor within me, or has it been something that I've kind of adapted because of the world that I've been living in? I'm like, you tell me one thing and I'm gonna tell you the other. Like, if you tell me I can't do something, then I'm gonna bend over backwards to make sure I do achieve that thing. And yeah, I guess that has eventually got to the point where it's like, I've always been told that I'd never be a professional athlete. It's like, challenge accepted.
Great.
Game on.
Now here you are.
And now here I am. And I've been told that like, I couldn't do this or I couldn't do that within the sport. Like you'll never be a professional backyard ultra runner, which, I mean, it's a totally fair statement. Like backyard ultra is a very niche sport within a niche sport. And yeah.
That's so true.
Only 18 months after the first person told me, oh, you'll never be able to be professional within the sport. Like, here I am, done it, tick.
Nice.
Give me another one.
Yeah. So where did the backyard, well, bring it back more, running, where did that first begin for you? Because with that mentality you just said, that fuck you mentality, which I love, and I advise to those that are willing to do the work, because it requires work and it requires accountability. Where did that begin, the running process? Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, like, I feel like running is more or less a part of everyone's life. Like, if you've got 2 legs and 2 feet and you're not totally crippled, like, you can run. Running's probably always kind of been there in the background, especially as like a
a fitness exercise for keeping fit for various sports. And I guess through high school, my main sport was rugby from the age of 13 onwards. And I guess the rugby kept me fit. And then there was a sprinkling of running around the block. That kept me fit. Living in the middle of nowhere, I'd either run places or I'd bike places to see friends or even rent a movie out or whatever. And yeah, I guess that progressed. It was probably about my last year of high school, and yeah, I was single. I didn't have too many hobbies apart from rugby and seeing friends. So yeah, I'd just go to the gym and I'd run, and I got really fit for that. And that probably led on to the next few years of university and playing rugby and doing the odd duathlon and maybe doing some weird little running race. But I guess I've always been doing cycling and rugby and a bit of running to keep fit. And then it was about 2016 when I moved to the US to play and coach rugby. I think I did a 5K while I was over there. And then the following year I was living in Ireland, and I did a few 5Ks while I was there, and I was doing pretty good. I was getting first, second, third podium, winning a bit of money, which was pretty cool. And then natural progression from that was I wanted to be a polyathlete. So I wanted to be a triathlete. I wanted to be skydiving and doing triathlons and duathlons and downhill mountain biking and just excelling at all of these things. So basically for a couple of years I just entered every race I simply could, anything. And for quite a while there, every weekend I had an event on. One week it might be running, the next week it might be mountain biking, the next week it might be a triathlon, and then some weeks I'd have two different events on, one on the Saturday and one on the Sunday. So I was just absolutely going after it. And yeah, I was getting some good results, but I was also getting some pretty crap results. But it allowed me to kind of experiment with a lot of things. And yeah, I guess all roads led back to running. I think I was naturally the best at running. I was able to get consistently good results in that. And yeah, I guess I had some good role models in the form of my dad and my great-grandfather, who were amazing runners. And so I guess they were kind of my inspiration for kind of chasing the running a bit more. And then about 2018, I did my first ultra marathon, did a 50K, won that. I broke the course record, and then I was like, okay, this is sick. I could do this. So yeah, I jumped from doing 5K races up to 50K, and then I did 100K, and the 100K kind of shook me a wee bit. But yeah, then not long after that, did a 100-mile. And then not long after that, I did my first backyard ultra, and all of a sudden I was going from getting all right results to then winning or podiuming in very high level races, beating very accomplished athletes. And yeah, for the last 2 years, that's basically where I've just put my focus. I don't play rugby anymore. I don't box anymore. I don't do any of the distractions. Literally, I just run, and I want to be the best possible runner I can be and dominate my sport in as many ways as possible. And yeah, all the other stuff's there, but I've just parked it for now while I chase the running thing.
It's a beautiful progression. I had no idea polyathlete. That's have been able to have all those sorts of physiological benefits of having done those sports that carry over. So how easy was it for you, and what can you say to this for people that do have many things, their hands in many pies? How easy was it for you to kind of select and come to that decision with the running? As you said you seem to excel in it the most. But how easy was it, and what was that process for you to decide decisively?
Yeah, for sure. And I guess anyone who does too many things or many things will understand that they spread themselves pretty thin. Like, you've only got so much bandwidth, and variably that'll expand or contract, but you can only really fit so many things into your life and do them very well. And with me chasing all these different extracurricular activities and all these different sporting things, I was a jack of all trades and a master of none. Like, I was pretty damn good at a few things, but I wasn't like absolutely excellent at any one thing in particular. And I personally was sick of just being good at stuff. I wanted to be great, and in order for me to be great at something, I needed to focus my time more wisely. And the way I saw it was rugby and boxing were two of my main sports. I was fighting and I was playing some pretty good level rugby, but at the end of the day, I was pretty skinny, I was pretty tiny, and got plenty of concussions to the point where, do I have longevity in the sport? Am I ever going to be a professional fighter? Am I ever going to be a professional rugby player? Probably not. But there's something here with this running thing that I'm actually pretty damn good at, that if I can really focus on, I can get really, really good at it. And there's a quote that I go back to quite often, on a daily basis almost, especially when I'm kind of adding or subtracting things from my life. And it's the less things you have in life, the more... the less things you own, the more freedom you will have. So the less things I have in life, the less things that are taking my focus, the more freedom I have, and the more I'll be able to kind of really do apply myself to the things that I am doing. And yeah, I'm much happier for it. Like, living a slightly more simple life without all these crazy things and spreading myself too thin, so I can focus on family, home, running, just a few simple things. And yeah, that's what focusing on the running has allowed me to do.
Well, that's actually a question I have very bluntly, but I feel you've answered it so eloquently. Is like, why do you run?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, running from the start, I guess, as a youngster, was like a mental health tool. It was getting out of the house. It was battling the demons. It was something that I'd use for that, and I still use it for that today. I mean, especially like if I haven't run for a day or 2 days, I'm not a happy person. So I definitely use my running as an outlet. Running nowadays, I guess I've kind of found my purpose. Like, my purpose is running, not just for the fact that, like, I'm a professional runner now. It's more so I'm kind of painting a picture and writing my own story of, what you can achieve in life, how limitless you truly can be. And I guess for the people that are maybe going through some shit that do follow my running, it's just showing them like how much better life can get. Like, if you might be dealing with some shit now, but just be patient, keep your head down and keep working, because life's going to get so much better. And I guess I'm an example of how much better it can get. And so I'm kind of like holding my torch high in the darkness for others. That's my purpose now.
Yeah, it's beautiful. You're transcending. The running's almost the vehicle, but
Absolutely.
the driver of that vehicle was, that's where the potency is. It's kind of just become the conduit of that truth.
Absolutely, it has.
So, I want to touch on that because, for the international listeners, New Zealand has some of the highest suicide rates. In the world, and sorry, man.
You're good, bro.
Yeah, so with that, we have these. We need these tools. We're losing so many people and so many men, and you've touched on this being a tool, being a vehicle, and the importance of that, and for those people that are out there, inevitably that are suffering. How do you, if you are to distill it, for what you're doing, you're voluntarily putting yourself through suffering, and how do you sort of distill that? It's a hard thing to ask, but I think having people sometimes need frameworks, and there might be that one person right now that's watching and listening to this that is in that space. They think there's no meaning, that they're hopeless, and for what you're going through, not to put so much weight on it, but in a way, as you just said, it's bigger than the running now.
For sure.
How would you express that?
The way I look at it, getting through suffering, getting through these races, I bring myself back to this one simple concept, and that's everything is finite. Like, nothing lasts forever. Pain doesn't last forever. Discomfort doesn't last forever. Happiness doesn't last forever. This shitty thing that you're going through, whether it's emotional grief or whether it's a 700-kilometer run in the desert, this thing has a beginning and it has an end, and you've just got to survive. You've got to do what you have to do until you can do what you want to do. And doing what you have to might just be surviving that moment or surviving that month or however long that uncomfortable period is. And there's something better on the other side of that, and regardless of whether you've survived it before, you're probably not going to appreciate that within the moment. So just get the job done, survive, work hard, get through the shit that's in front of you, and eventually the situation will transform to something totally different. But you've got to get there. Like, life gets so much better. You've just got to survive until it does. Put in the work and get yourself there.
Yeah, because it's beautifully put, man. And I think the real raw reality of life is that fundamentally life is suffering. And I learned that from Buddha, and that's a big tenet in Buddhism, is that suffering is inevitable, and that it almost seems to be that the sooner you accept it, the better. But when you're in the thick of it, you truly do, if you allow it, you truly think that it is hopeless and that it will never end. And that analogy of running, I think that's why what you're doing is so beautiful, because this is a physical expression of showing that there's a beginning and an end, and in the middle there's numerous highs and lows, probably more than you'll probably experience in a lifetime, and splitting and cutting through that and having to go through that. And with that, for myself, I'm such a proponent of physical movement, and as you are yourself, and how important do you think movement is, and for those that do wish to incorporate more movement into their life? But firstly, how important do you think movement is as a tool, as a remedy of that?
I think it's essential. I think it's essential, yet it's a tool within a toolbox. It is not the be-all, end-all. Yes, like exerting oneself in a cardiovascular manner is it's gonna help. It's gonna increase blood flow. It's gonna increase endorphins and serotonin and all the good shit that flows within our bodies and within our brains. But it's not going to fix all the problems. The way I see exercise and movement and the rest is it allows you to build momentum. It allows you to start something and have a small victory. And when you have a victory, you can build on that with further victories. And so, yeah, that's why running and cycling and all these different exercises has been very central within my own mental health toolbox. It's because, yeah, regardless of how shit I'm feeling, I can go out and make myself feel good, at least in the moment. I can get that victory, and then I can build on that. It might be going for a bike ride or going for a run, and then get home, feel grounded, feel good about myself, and it's like, you know what, I can tackle that next job, or I can start ticking things off my checklist that when you look at all the things that you've got to check off, maybe it is overwhelming, and so you've built that little bit of momentum that's going to then allow you to start doing the other maybe harder jobs that you've been avoiding.
So discipline,
yeah,
it's huge.
Absolutely.
So with your toolbox, how would this sort of change for you, or developed, or has it even stayed the same? But how do you sort of approach that, and what you can utilize that mental toolbox for you to address what
for
you
sure
are?
So 2 key parts that I can think of off the top of my head right now, and that's ownership. I am responsible for everything that happens to me, regardless of who is doing what in the world. I am responsible for my experience within the world, for what's happening to me and what I'm doing in response to what is happening to me. I mean, even being in a shitty job with a shitty boss who treats you terribly, and you're suffering month after month, year after year, it's like, yeah, that boss sucks, and what they're doing might be criminal, but at the same time, you're the one who's staying in that job. You are responsible for staying there and letting these things happen to you. So accepting responsibility, taking ownership of what's happening to you in life. Another big thing is understanding what there is in the world that essentially, can I change this? Is this within my control to change? If it is in my control, then I'm going to change it. I'm going to fix it. And if it's out of my control, if I can't change that thing, don't worry about it. You worrying about something isn't going to fix the problem. It's only going to kind of poison you. If you can fix it, fix it. If you can't fix it, don't worry about it.
I love that. Real good answer. I think the reason that resonates for me is it's very much the framework in which I'm I view the world, and I think it's very practical. It's quite stoic, and there's also a degree of pragmatic as well, because again, it shines and echoes to the self-talk you had in that world record of that very matter-of-fact, like self-talk, that direct inventory kind of taking, self-analysis, and how much responsibility plays a role. I think this is something that is often overlooked in this day and age, is that people aren't very willing to take responsibility, and the change thing as well. If you can't change it, well, then accept it, or just let it go. So, you used the chameleon analogy. I thought that was really well put, that when you're in those races, I've kind of answered this, but this is in sort of a different direct way, that more so for the person specific to those sorts of events, you could translate this out into real life in the sense that it could be used in the context of that boss situation where you've got a shitty boss and you've got to quit. But when you in the context of a race where you really do have to dig deep into that lack of a better word, dungeon, that mental dungeon, how that's, or if it has changed also for you in that process, and how you could translate it to the person viewing, listening.
Sorry, I have to get you to rephrase that as a question.
So essentially, again, it's a mental tool, how you would utilize that in a race where you're in that real dungeon. You mentioned the self-talk, but like, I have to think that there's a process that you have to go through mentally. Maybe there's not, but people are facing this every day. So what's a tool that you could translate to someone? You said the ownership piece, but in the context of a race, but in the context of a very uncomfortable situation, people are very averse from discomfort now as well. So I think that's a big part of it.
Yeah, for sure.
Is that clearer?
Yeah, kind of. Hopefully I answer it appropriately. I guess in that uncomfortable situation when I want to quit, or I want to find an easy way out, I basically, I take ownership of it and basically come back to the concept of, if you give up now, every single little step, every little action leading up to this point will have counted for nothing. Like, getting to this point where you're at now, whether it's a race or whatever, like, it has been a massive road leading up to that point, and everything has culminated in you being there in that moment to achieve whatever it is you've set out to achieve. If you give up, if you flake, if you don't get the job done, then literally every event that you've put yourself into, whether it's training or preparation or planning or all the work that you've put in, if you don't check the box in the moment and give it all you've got and really achieve it, then what has everything else been for leading up to that moment? Nothing.
Yeah, that's great. The thing, it's so hard to articulate. It's just, there's people that don't even know the thing, eh? They don't even know that thing is. They don't even know the thing in which they have the steps for that thing to get to the point where they're up against that fine line, that tightrope, and they haven't even got to that point. So it's so that's I think the biggest difficult thing in this life, in this era. But essentially what you said, I think, is perfect, because it's really coming back to that self-talk and responsibility piece that, you've really just gotta, sometimes there's that voice and you've really just gotta look at everything you did to get to that point and know that it was worth it and that you've got the capacity, and you've almost just got to turn that voice off.
Mm-hmm. I mean, like, you've survived everything up to now. If you give up now, then what was the point in surviving all the hardships that you've endured up to that point? Like, you have the capacities to survive this too. It's not going to be comfortable, but you are transcending. And transcending isn't supposed to be comfortable. Like, you are not the same human being as you were at point A as you will be at point Z. And the process in between the 2 points is not comfortable, but it is worthy.
Yeah, I think that in itself could just be a cut. Like, people just really need to just echo on that. And I think it's the thing that people don't want to hear, because you've literally just got to accept that it's going to be so fucking difficult. And this kind of leads me on to my next question, and what we touched on with the high suicide rates of New Zealand in particular. I'm aware that you are affiliated with I Am Hope.
Yeah.
If you could break that down, what is I Am Hope, and what is your aims, and what is your work with them?
Yeah, for sure. So I Am Hope is basically like the industry leader in mental health services here in New Zealand. It's run by Mike King, and basically what it does is provides free counselling to youths in New Zealand. And yeah, I've been an ambassador for them for the last couple of months. Teamed up with them leading into the world record race, and said I wanted to raise a bit of coin for them, and they said awesome. And yeah, I set a target of $10,000 in 4 weeks, and I thought that was kind of pushing it. And yeah, I guess I got a hell of a lot of support through the world record race, and then afterwards, and yeah, I hit my 10 grand, and then I hit 20 grand, and yeah, I'll continue to raise for them, and I guess spread awareness within the mental health sector. And yeah, I mean, I'm raising money for them so they can put it to good use and pay for counselling for young ones in New Zealand, so they have people to talk to kind of I guess help fix some of the problems, or at least be a voice when they need to be heard. And yeah, and then I guess I'm shining my light through running in the mental health space, because essentially what I did was, as a young person who was maybe going through some shit times, and in another life might have seen a doctor or a counsellor and been put on antidepressants or whatever. Instead, I didn't do any of that, and I just ran, and I just toughened up and dug myself out of the darkness. And I guess I'm lucky that I had, I don't know, good parents and good raising, and my fuck you gene, and
Fuck yeah.
basically wasn't willing to give up. And so yeah, I dug myself out of the darkness. But yeah, there's a hell of a lot of people that don't have the capacity or the tools to do what I've done. And so yeah, I'm essentially helping those people and trying to spread the word of how to how to pick yourself up if no one else is able to help.
Yeah, that fuck you gene. I think, like, I've got this inkling that kind of goes back to the responsibility piece. I think people, I think there's a people, a fair amount of people that do have that, but again, it demands that inventory, it demands that responsibility, it demands that looking in the mirror, because again, a lot of people can probably wake up in the scheme of being a better person. They want to lose weight. Well, you just got to stop eating that cake, and look at it in a real minute form, but when you put it out into macro, in a sense of mental health, that I think people forget how fucking badass, how hard, how strong they can be.
Absolutely. And I think in modern society, like, we are beaten into shape. We are beaten to the point where, like, you fit into a square box. And me taking ownership over my own life and just saying, you know what, I don't fit into a square box. Like, I have no interest in that. And so I've said, I'm doing this, and get out of my way if you think you can stop me. I think there's a lot of people that have been kind of forced into a box for so long that they've forgotten how kick-ass they are. They haven't got the momentum, they haven't got the wins to kind of extrapolate from and be their own champion.
Nicely put. What would you say to your young self, having gone through that, what you said you went through, with what you have now?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, just stay strong. Stay strong and believe in yourself. Back yourself all the way. Fuck anyone who doubts you.
Yeah. I like that. There's this part of me, I just know people would probably watch this and be like, oh, that's so... but sometimes it's as simple as just really reducing it down to the mineral fucking soil of being... It's as simple as just being like, I just fucking want this. You just got to want it. Mm-hmm. You spoke about this in the sauna session of the willingness to change, and I think that's a huge thing with this whole, even in the mental health space of people going through. Because the reason I must say, I'll confess here, because people are going to listen to this, but unfortunately I lost my beautiful brother to suicide, and the thing that was so hard, so hard, is he forgot. It's what we're saying here. He forgot how strong he was. And the thing that was so difficult about it was his willingness. So he forgot how strong and of a beautiful man he was, first of all, because that was the first fact he was. But because of that belief system, there was no willingness to change, essentially, and that forgetfulness of, I'm actually a badass motherfucker, I can do this. And you say this to your young self, which I think's a real great answer and very true, and I get it, but there's people that just, it's like they just won't, it's not enough for them, it's not suffice. It's the $1 million question, right? Because we've got such a problem of it, and globally, but particularly in New Zealand, in our own backyard.
Yeah, well, I think the problem in New Zealand is, like, we're just so isolated, and we don't know how to talk, so we don't know how to reach out. So we shoulder the load on our own, and that becomes overwhelming. I mean, yes, New Zealand has a bit of a problem as far as, like, having the services available. Like, do we have enough mental health workers in New Zealand? No. But at the same time, do we have a systemic societal problem as far as owning the burden and not sharing? Yeah, that's pretty terrible within New Zealand. So yeah, I guess, yeah, having the strength to reach out is a massive one, and talk, or find, if you don't have someone that you can talk to, it's finding the person that you can talk to. I mean, like, yeah, you might have a circle of 12 people and none of them you can talk to, but expand the circle, change the circle then. If there's no one that you can talk to, if there's no one that can help you repair and you don't have the capacity to do silly shit like me and fix most of it yourself, then yeah, find the person that can share the load with you.
I think people as well, they expect that once you know you got to talk and you begin to talk, that it's kind of smooth as well. I think that's a huge misconception.
Yeah, and the problem is, like, a lot of people think that like they are a burden by sharing their load, when you ask fucking anybody and they're going to say, I'd much rather you call me up at 1 a.m. for a chat than I find out you've done something terrible and I never hear from you again. Like people are always willing to share the load with you. You aren't a burden, and a lot of us need to realize that.
We really do. We really do. So with that saying, I'm very curious with this being an ambassador for I Am Hope. So is this something for every race moving forward? You get together some sort of fundraise page, and is that the process each event moving forward, or how does that expand for you?
I think it's going to be a long-term relationship.
Yeah, great.
And yeah, I mean, am I raising money for them? Yes. But more so, I think, am I an advocate for mental health through sport? Yeah, that's kind of the big thing.
Yeah,
kind of spreading the word and changing the conversation and helping to improve our societal and systemic insufficiencies that we have here in New Zealand and probably further abroad.
Yeah. So in terms of now the question you probably get often, how is this going to progress for you now? You've got the World Champs coming up, so talk about that a bit. What's the aim? I guess everyone watching and listening can probably guess what your aim will be, but
yeah, bro.
What's that like now?
So I got no training. No, lots of training. No racing between now and October. I've got my World Championship race in October, and I've basically just got my head down training for that, because I've been I think it's 6 or 7 months. I've been racing ultra marathons basically back to back, so I'm just having a bit of a rest now. And October World Championship, break the world record again, and do some hectic running. I'd say we'll probably provided everyone's there and conditions are right and everyone wants to throw down who wants to throw down, I'd say we'll break 1,000 kilometers, which will be wild. So that'll be 130 something hours or more, which will be crazy. And then fly back to New Zealand a week after that. I've got a small backyard ultra down in Arrowtown that I think I'm going to. I've just been selected for the New Zealand 24-hour team for the World 24-hour Champs in Taiwan in December. And yeah, I'm not sure if I really want to go to that, because road ultra is just another beast.
It's on the road.
Yeah, it's like a 2 kilometer loop, and you've got 24 hours to just run as far as you can. No loops, no stopping. You just run for 24 hours and see how far you can run. And I have really hurt myself in that format of racing before. The worst injuries that I've ever done in running have been.
Is it just the uniformity? It's just completely you're more prone. Which people that don't understand running, they would think, what? You'll probably get more injured on trail, but nah.
Nah, I mean, road ultra, 24 hours, you're using the same muscle groups. It's the same range of motion. It's the same everything. I've torn my hip flexor. I've split the cartilage on the head of the femur. I've done all sorts of nasty injuries in that type of racing. So yeah, I got the World Championship for that if I accept the invitation, and then like moving into next year, Tarawera 100 mile, the Barkley, and a whole heap of other silliness that's just going to kind of take on a life of its own.
Yeah, great. Yeah, awesome. I'll provide all the links. I presume Sam Harvey on Instagram.
Yeah, so Sam Harvey Cloudlander on Instagram, and then for my direct website, it's samharveyultra.com.
Yeah, cool. And also, I've got another couple questions regarding, I forgot to ask, and I think it's real, like, overlooked, is the sleep. Did you encounter many hallucinations, or was that process like with sleep deprivation?
I've had hallucinations with ultramarathon in the past. I, as a rookie, would lean into that. Like, I really wanted the free hallucinations that came with ultra distance running. And so I'd lean into that, and then you kind of go off the deep end and you lose your mind a little bit. Now I kind of control all that. Like, I don't want to hallucinate because I want to be in control throughout the race.
Yeah.
I keep control of my nutrition, so I'm not kind of starving my brain of nutrition or fluid or whatever, so it keeps functioning properly, because I think that definitely speeds up you losing your mind a wee bit. And yeah, like I'm very much in control throughout the race. Sleep deprivation, I mean, like 3 or 4 plus days in, it gets pretty ruthless, to the point where like you're so sleep deprived at that point that all you need to do is close your eyes and you pass out. Like you close your eyes and you are asleep instantly. So yeah, that was something, but it didn't become too much of a factor. Probably just the fact that I was like totally exhausted to like the core of my soul. I was tired. Like, I've never been so tired in my life.
So following that, because my experience of running ultras is that, especially big ones, is that your nervous system is so jacked up that you would think that you can just have restful sleeps. I don't know what it was like for you, but for me, it was so broken for a few days. What was that like for you coming off the world record?
Off the world record, yeah, I think I was sleeping pretty good, but at the same time, you'll wake up in pain.
Yeah.
Like, you'll wake up in a hell of a lot of pain. So I think it was for probably a week after the race, I was taking painkillers before I went to bed, and then if I woke up in the middle of the night, I might take painkillers again, because like you've worn out the soles of your feet and all of your tendons and your ankles and your knee joints and your hips. Everything that moves within your legs has been just absolutely destroyed, and so all of that's worn out, and as a result, like, it hurts and it aches, and yeah, it's pretty unbearable at times. And so yeah, for a few nights I was taking painkillers after the race, but also waking up from a lot of broken sleep, because obviously you've given your body a caning. It's trying to process all of this, I guess, dead material or poison or whatever is within your body, so you're getting up and peeing like 6 times during the night sometimes, because your body's just flushing all of the bad stuff from the system.
Yeah. More misery on top of the misery. Well, Sam, honestly, brother, I thank you. There's a lot in here. I'm really looking forward to listening back to this.
It's been a pleasure.
One final question is to the person that, honestly, they're willing to do the work. I'm not talking to the person that's on the couch, because this is for that person, this conversation, but for the person that just has that piece of doubt, but they're willing to take that first step, whether it be running, whether it be going forth to do that audacious thing that everyone in their family or everyone in their friend group said, no, that fuck you, Gene. What would you say to that person?
Just get started.
Yeah.
Like, there's never a right time to do anything. Just get started and have the courage to fail, and have the courage to fail miserably, and then get up and build from that. Because if you start and fail early and build and improve, eventually you're going to succeed and you're going to win and even dominate, provided you are willing to put in the work.
Well said, Sam. Great. Well, that's all from me. And Sam, thank you for that. I will provide all the links, and is there an Iron Hope fundraising option at the moment that's open?
I don't have one raising at the moment, but yeah, there will be stuff if people link up through my website or through Instagram. Right. And I'll probably just do a shameless sponsor plug. Thanks to Currans New Zealand, who are providing me with the purple capsules to allow me to recover and perform at the higher level. To Base Woodfire Pizza, who have been my sponsors since day one down in Christchurch, and Off Piece Provisions, who are providing me with plant-based jerky, basically just to allow me to have that added protein supplement within my training regime, so I'm building and recovering and performing consistently. And cheers.
Love you all. Thank you for listening and taking the time. And please, when you got the time, reach out to Sam. Look into I Am Hope, all the work he's doing there and all the work that I Am Hope are doing. And please like, share, and subscribe to the podcast, because there's plenty more of these videos to be coming, and I'm excited to see the space grow. Thanks a lot, Sam.
Cheers, brother. Been a pleasure.